My name is Mason, and this is your February 2026 and brief overview of the 2025 Vail real estate market update. Now, I'm on record saying that over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of built up and pent up seller and buyer demand. Whether you're a buyer or seller, you look at the numbers, you look at mortgage rates and what it costs to move nowadays, and it just doesn't get very many families excited to make the move from where they're at to where they want to be. We commonly refer to that as golden handcuffs. I know our family is one of them. We have a very good mortgage rate, and we would love an additional bedroom or some square footage and maybe even some more land around us. But when we crunch the numbers, it just does not make sense for us to leave the home that we like right now that I'm standing in and take on the numbers and mortgage payment for what a slightly bigger home would cost. With that being said, there was some incredible growth over the last few years in Vail. I went back 25 years, so 2001, and looked at how many homes sold every year, and it was very predictable. You could bet money that every year Vail would grow anywhere from 5 to 30%, and home sales would grow on a very linear path. In 2023 to 2024, we saw a 100% increase in home sales. That was incredible to see. That line on the bar graph was vertical and just showed there was a lot of development, a lot of people moving to Southeast Tucson here in the Vail area. Now, since then, things have leveled out. The median price point in 2003 closed out here in Vail at $400,000. 2024 stood the exact same at $400,000. And 2025, Vail homes closed out only 2% less at $392,000 for the median home price in Vail. Now, when I zoom out and look at the big picture, I'm very bullish on real estate here in Vail, and that's because there's a lot of development. There's a lot of businesses coming. Costco was just announced. Sprouts has already broken ground. There's a number of other building projects and construction going on just down the road at Houghton Town Center. And the schools. You can't mention Vail without saying the schools. Our kids have now been in the district for a while, and we know why they're in such demand. You can't, of course, drive down a street without noticing two things: the homes being built and the traffic. Just know that it is on everyone's radar when it comes to infrastructure and improving the area, and that Vail, due to local government constraints, is moving slowly. However, all the problems with Southeast Tucson, specifically infrastructure and the roads, is a hot topic, and it is being addressed, but again, government doesn't move quickly. But I digress. Getting back to the Vail real estate market, the busiest price point for last year was anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000, and they saw 502 total sales. Again, if I showed you that bar graph, that price point was significantly further ahead than any other price point. The price point on the other end of the spectrum in the luxury division, anywhere from $1.2 million and up, only saw 3 total sales. Now, I mention that because if you look at Tucson and the Foothills and Oro Valley, included is Marana, there are some price points that have never really been seen entering the Tucson market. So I'm curious on the luxury side of Vail real estate, what developers are going to bring, who's going to up the price, who's going to start developing or start selling homes in the $1 million and up price point. I'm very optimistic because it seems like a very untapped market that has nothing but growth ahead of it. But again, anything above $1 million is pretty rare in 85641. Looking back at the total sales, 2021, Vail had 850 sales, 22 had 754, 23, when we saw the rates jump up to about the 6.5% mark, we saw a decline and only 668 sales occurred. We saw a huge surge from 23 to 24 at 824 sales. And then from 24 to 25, there was 100 plus more total home sales. Again, just showing the demand of Southeast Tucson and Vail. 2025 closed out at 949 total sales. Again, I just briefly mentioned it, but I want to state that in my opinion, Vail is very ripe for development. Again, you can't drive down any street without seeing homes being built. There's always an influx of young families moving to the area, whether they're military or coming from out of town, or just want to get away from the big bustling city we call Tucson, and maybe a little bit more peace and quiet here in Southeast Tucson. We love it here. We've been here for a number of years. We don't plan on moving. And this video, when I do Vail, it always hits home for me because this is where we live. We love it, and I like seeing a developing, healthy, growing market. All right, fast forward to today, February, and looking at January 2026, Vail had 68 total home sales. This was up 26% from the same time last year in January of 2025. That's a pretty significant jump jump, 26% difference from one year over the other. Your median price point for a single family home came in at $373,000, and your average price point came in at $403,000. Next, your median days on market actually lowered itself by 19 total days and came in at 45 days on market. Again, that's your median. Your average days on market was also substantially less. It lowered by 31 total days, and January 2026 saw an average of 59 days on market. Again, seeing such a drastic drop, it just goes to show how slow homes were moving over the past year and how much buyer and seller demand has come back into the market with just the first month of 2026 coming to an end. Your average price per square foot was only 1% less from the same time last year, so January 25 versus January 2026 was $208 a square foot. The next piece I like is the percent of list price received to sellers, and that came in at negative 0.74%. That means on average, sellers made 0.74% less than what they listed their home for when it actually closed. Months of supply is currently at a little over 4 months of supply in inventory. That means if today there were no more homes listed for the next year, the inventory would last about 4 months. Typically, when we see any home inventory under 6 months of supply, that lends itself more to a seller's market. However, due to the higher rates and let's call it the overall economy, we still very much are in a buyer's market. Next is price drop. Of the 68 total sales last month, 36 or 59% of those sales had a price drop after about 2 weeks on the market or 15 median days. This is good to know because whether you're a buyer or seller, you know that on average, or the median is after about 2 weeks, you'll be able to know how your home's performing and whether you need to lower it, higher it, keep it in the middle, change something. And on the buy side, you know that if a home's been sitting for more than 2 weeks, you can more than likely get yourself a good deal, whether it be lowering the price or asking for seller concessions. Last but not least is how Vail, or 85641, performed against all other Tucson zip codes. A Tucson zip code is anything that starts with 857, and there are 31 total zip codes. Vail adding into the mix makes it 32. The first category we look at is the total amount of homes sold, and we know Vail came in at 68 total homes, which puts it a mile ahead of the next highest zip code in Tucson, which is just up the road for us, 85747, which came in at 32 total sales. Pretty interesting that although Vail is bigger than 85747, we had more than double the amount of activity that the next highest zip code had. Next is the median price point Vail has compared to the rest of Tucson, and we came smack dab in the middle at 15th place with a median price point of $373,000. Lastly are the days on market, or how slowly or how quickly homes moved here in our area, and Vail came in 8th place at 45 days on market. To summarize, I'm really liking all the numbers and all the trends that I'm seeing in Vail. We've seen a big stagnation that was not only specific to Vail, but this applied to, let's call it, all of southern Arizona. And that's a pretty big footprint. But I would say even on the greater scale, the U.S. housing market really just slowed down and just kind of held steady and did not move a whole lot over the last 2 years. Now, I'm not saying economic conditions are incredibly better than what they've been. However, you can only keep that demand that buyers and sellers have had pent up or behind the dam for so long before it bursts. I think what we're seeing is a trend into a healthy, confident market. There's a lot of development. Normally, you gauge how strong a market is by how active the new builders are putting out inventory and putting up homes. I know as someone who lives here and passes by these communities 100 times a day, the builders are not stopping here in Southeast Tucson. Now, what you won't find are big luxury mansions or big giant custom one-off homes. Those developers have actually pulled back from Tucson, or correction, from Vail, and there's a few communities that are sitting empty because those type of developers have pulled out. But we have seen the upper end, bigger box builders, for example, Mattamy Homes, has now occupied those once upon a time $1 million homes and is building more middle to upper end pre-built spec homes. So again, all that to say, I'm bullish on Vail. I'm very optimistic. I like where it's going. I know everyone's biggest complaint is the infrastructure and is it going to start feeling overcrowded here? I think we have a lot of room to work with. I know for a fact from going to different meetings or talking with the Vail Chamber of Commerce that every problem we have here in Southeast Tucson, housing or not, is on the radar of local government. That wraps up the summary for January 26 and overall briefly on how Vail did in 2025. But if you have any questions, you're curious about the market, whether it's here, Marana, San Manuel, Oracle, Benson, Tucson, it doesn't matter. If you have questions, leave a comment down below, shoot me a message. All my info is down below in this video description, and I would love to help. If I could be of service to you and your family, whether you're shopping for a home or just curious, feel free to reach out. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.